In a world where legends rise and fall with every punch, where the roar of the crowd fades, but the stories live on. This is where those stories are told. This is Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From the blood, the sweat, and the glory, to the controversies, comebacks, and knockouts, we go behind the ring, no fluff, no hype, and definitely no BS. Just the truth behind the fight game. And we've been doing it for over 2 decades. A podcast pioneer, now a Hall of Famer.
Great. What's that ego gonna be like?
And next, the comeback kid.
Wait, isn't he like 90 or something?
Shut up, he'll hear you. The reigning, defending, undisputed, heavyweight champion of boxing broadcasting. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. And it's on now.
And we're coming live from the Billy C Studios in Lake Bill Calogero. And it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching and whenever you're listening. I hope today's show is being brought to us in part by my website, BillyCBoxing.com. And also today's show is being, it's like I forgot how to do the show, but today's show is also being brought to us in part by grade. And I'm getting my bearing here, so just bear with me here 1 second. I got to get my camera working. Been ready for the last 4 hours, and all of a sudden I can't get the camera here the way it should be. There we go. I guess I just had to click that button. I just want to tell everybody I'm glad to be back. I'm rejuvenated. The sport of boxing's got me jacked up again, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the show. We're refreshed. We got some new stuff that we're going to be doing, and we'll start right now, to be honest with you. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's popping up into the chat room. My man Orlando from Florida Boxing Hall of Fame had a great time. That was actually the last time I did a show. I thought that was it. I didn't have to do any more because I got into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in addition to the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame, and I was content, to be honest with you. And the sport turned me off a little bit, and all of a sudden, bam, Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez got me back into it. I want to thank everybody that kept hounding me and bugging me to bring the show back. Special thanks to my man Augie from Riverhead. And the reason is because I speak to him very often, and he told me, you got to bring the show back. There's no, blah, I can't find any news. I can't find this. I can't find that. He was very instrumental in my decision to come back. We got a good show scheduled for you today. We got one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best boxing referees in the sport joining us a little bit later. And that would be my man Harvey Dock. And I bugged Dax Khan to stop in and give us his thoughts on the Canelo Crawford fight, or should I say Crawford Canelo. And if you guys, anybody that's been watching or listening to this show for any length of time, they know that 2 years ago, I'm going to pat myself on the back here. 2 years ago, when Crawford started calling out Canelo, I said on this very show that I felt that Terence Crawford would beat Canelo Alvarez. Everybody thought I was crazy. And all the time leading up to it, and finally the fight was signed, and I kept getting asked, did you change your mind? Did you change your mind? And I said, no. And the reason is because Terence Crawford's a smart fighter. He's a generational fighter. And the truth of the matter is he didn't just go up in weight, because that was the big conversation. Oh, he's going up 2 weight classes, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but he didn't just go up in weight for one fight. All right. He did go up in weight for one fight, but he took a year to put that weight on. You think he just was eating donuts and shit like that just to gain the weight? No, he looked fantastic. And I'll tell you something that he did during that night that amazed me, to be honest with you. not only did he look very comfortable at that weight, and if you recall, at 154 pounds in his previous fight, he didn't look all that big. He actually, I know the weight was there, but physically he didn't look big, you know. But when he stepped in the ring with Canelo, he looked just as big. And he did not lose any hand speed. He didn't lose a beat. He looked like the same Terence Crawford that fought at all the other weight classes that he did against Canelo. And make no mistake, I saw a lot of stuff on social media talking about how I actually saw people say Canelo won the fight. You know, listen, the fight wasn't close. Crawford dominated the fight. As a matter of fact, my scorecard here, I scored the fight 117-111 in favor of Terence Crawford. Two of the judges had it 115-113. One had it 116-112. I feel that the judges tried their hardest to give Canelo the win. You just could not do it. Crawford won almost most of the rounds to me. You know, the first round that everybody gave to Crawford, I actually gave to Canelo. I gave the first round to Canelo, and the reason is I thought he landed the more substantial shots. The second round was extremely close. I gave it to Crawford. Third round, I gave it to Crawford. The fourth round, I gave to Canelo. The fifth round could have gone either way, I guess. It was a close round. I gave it to Crawford. And then I gave Crawford round 6, 7. I gave round 8 to Canelo. I gave rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12 all to Terence Crawford, which came up with my score, 117-111. There's nothing left for him to prove, in my opinion. In a perfect world, I would like to see him retire, to be honest with you. I know everybody's wondering, oh, what's he going to do? Who should he fight next? Right away, people, are finding opponents for him to fight. There's nothing left for him to prove. The only fight that makes sense to me, even though my honest opinion is I feel he should retire. Okay, retire at the top of his game. Not many fighters get the opportunity to do that. Walk away at the top of your game. You're always remembered for that. Boxing has a tendency to have a short memory. So if he goes out and lays a dud, like for example, Canelo, Canelo has had a great career. Now, all of a sudden, if he retired, everybody's going to remember his last fight, losing to Crawford, So, if Crawford had to fight again or really wanted, if his juices were flowing and he wanted to fight again, have the rematch with Canelo if Canelo gives it to him. The main reason is he'll be able to make some money. From what I heard, the reports was he only made $10 million on that fight. And I heard reports that Canelo made well over 150 was the report that I heard, whether it's true or not. But the truth of the matter is to me, that's the only fight that I would like to see him. There's nobody else. I know everybody and their brothers starting to call him out and everything else. But the truth of the matter is he doesn't need to do it. But we'll see. Give him some time, and he is 38 now, and he didn't look old. He's a preserved guy. And I've said all along, people criticize his record, which to me is a joke. What people forget is that he started out really as the B-side. He was a perfect, what people would call the B-side, because he was undefeated fighter. He was out of Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm sure other fighters and promoters were like, hey, who could he fight? He's from Nebraska. There's no fighters in Nebraska. Let's fight him. And, he won. He kept winning. Finally, the powers that be at one point said, you know what? Maybe this is an A-side fighter. And everything changed for Terence Crawford. One of the biggest negatives he had, in my opinion, was Top Rank. Top Rank didn't let him fight enough. Listen, he proved to everyone that, what you need, not only do you need the physical tools, you need the mental tools. And to be honest with you, my biggest dream right now for Terence Crawford is I hope that his willingness to challenge himself and to prove his greatness in the ring. Okay, there's many other fighters that base their career on their record, their O, so to speak. That's not the case, man. All the great fighters, if you go back in history, all the great fighters, the greatest fighters, I should say, have always challenged themselves, win, lose, or draw. They challenge themselves. I mean, you got to give Sugar Ray Leonard credit. Of course, Sugar Ray Robinson, but you got to give Sugar Ray Leonard credit, coming out of retirement and going after the top dog in Marvin Hagler. We could talk about that particular fight over and over and over and over, to see if, who you thought won. I mean, many people go either way on that fight, to be honest with you. But the truth of the matter is he did it. Give a shout out to everybody that's in the chat room. I appreciate you guys coming for this first show back in over 6 months. Yes, I said I retired, but hey, a lot of fighters said they retired too, and you see what happened there. Some other things I wanted to talk about, and when I bring Dax on, he's going to give me his thoughts on the fight. I got some comments here in the chat room. My man Jess says Crawford proved how great he is. We are blessed to have Crawford, Usyk, and Inoue in this era. I agree with you. My man Orlando scored at 116, 112. Give a shout out to my man Joel and my man Matt. Thanks, Matt. I'm glad I'm back as well. The thing is that in this particular fight, he challenged himself. He thought outside the box, and he proved his greatness inside the ring. I think that goes a long way. I hear, yes, I'm going to mention his name. I wasn't going to, but, I hear everybody talking about Mayweather. He's undefeated, 15-0. Let's be straight. The 49-0 record that he beat was only substantial in the heavyweight division. There were many other fighters that surpassed 50-0 before they lost their first fight. Okay, Floyd retired at 50-0. And now I hear everybody say, oh, but Billy C, he's fought the more world champions. Yeah, in an era where there's a gazillion world champions. I had this argument with somebody on that wasn't Facebook, it was on social media, where I said, look, I plug my man. I'm going to have Mike Silver on the show at some point, but I plug his book. He's got a new book out. We'll talk about that when he comes on. But he had the book out, The Rise and Fall, the Arc of Boxing, The Rise and Fall of the Sweet Science. If you've never read it, get yourself a copy after you get my book, of course. The truth of the matter is he proves it with data. And one of the biggest things is that, number one, in the 40s, let's say, and he used that particular era, there were more licensed boxers in the 1940s in the state of New York than there are, way more than there are in the world today. Or when he did his comparison in I think the early 2000s or maybe 2010, I forget when his book came out. But so that's number one. Number two, there was only one world champion for each weight class. And by the way, there were only 8 weight classes. And not only that, there was only 10 top contenders for 8 weight classes. So if you made it to the top 10 contender, if you were number 10, you were badass. Today, you got 4 sanctioning bodies. You got, all those different weight classes, junior, super, all of that stuff. And the 4 sanctioning bodies, I have the heavyweight rankings here that if we have time, we'll go over. There generally there's a couple of fighters that are the same, but most of them are differently ranked. So you have all these guys walking around saying they're number 5, they're number 1, they're number 2, they're number 9. You got all the belts. It's just it's watered down. So you can't use that. Floyd can't use it. And the problem that I have with Floyd is that he did not challenge himself like Terence Crawford. Listen, I've always said that you can't put a fighter in an all-time great ranking until at least 5 years after their career is over, because you got to, all due fairness to the fighter, you got to let the career sink in and do an evaluation. But I will tell you this, regardless of where Terence Crawford goes from this day forward, the fact that he challenged himself as much as he did, way more than Floyd ever did, I'm sure that I'm going to have him higher than Floyd. I have Floyd right now on my all-time top list at number 25. To say he's number one is ridiculous. Okay, but that's that. I also want to mention real quick some sad news that has happened over the last couple of weeks. Actually, September 14th, Ricky Hatton passed away. And it saddened me to hear that. It was, Ricky Hatton was one of my favorite fighters. There's only one Ricky Hatton. The one of the issues that Ricky always had was that he ballooned up in between fights. That's one thing I'll always give Floyd Mayweather credit for. To this day, Floyd Mayweather is in good shape. He never had to really get into shape when he went into training camp. He was able to prepare for his fighter. So I give him credit for that. But when they start saying he beat more world champions, so he's better than Sugar Ray Robinson, no, that's not the case. And he never challenged himself as much as Crawford did. I loved the fight. I think it rejuvenated the sport. I actually am buying into what Turki Al-Rashid keeps saying about he wants to make the great fights and all this stuff. But it is what it is. We'll see. If you recall, what I look at with Turki Al-Rashid is that he's promising us that he'll make meaningful fights. Remember, boys and girls, the PBC said the same thing, and we were bombarded with free fights. And everybody said, "Oh, Al Heyman and the PBC is saving boxing." Oh, thank God! No, they didn't. They ripped us off because now all they're doing, every one of their fights, they're far and few in between, are pay-per-view. And like for example, this fight that they have scheduled for October 22nd, Sebastian Fundora going up against a guy that, his best days are behind him, if you even want to give him credit, and that's Keith Thurman. I wouldn't be surprised if the fight gets called off. Keith Thurman's the man of a million excuses, but it's a pay-per-view. It's a pay-per-view. And quite honestly, Keith Thurman didn't fight for years. He fights one fighting, automatically gets a title shot. Now, how is that fair to the other fighters that have been working their butts off in the gym and trying to climb the ladder? And everything else, quick shout out to Grievous and Jesus, everybody back. Hey, excuse me. Jesus saying he scored the fight 12 rounds to none for Crawford. It was an easy, dominating fight. It was a dominating fight, but I do give credit to Canelo for, when he was landing punches, he was trying to land them, and they did land kind of hard. They did not affect Bud. They didn't affect Bud Crawford at all. And his counterpunching and hand speed, I think, confused him. Look, when you look at Canelo and you look at his losses to Bivol and to Floyd Mayweather, even though he fought Floyd Mayweather when he was still pretty green, nonetheless, those two fighters, Bivol and Mayweather, both have, decent hand speed, footwork. They know they're ring generals. And they gave Canelo fits. Did you think for a minute that Crawford isn't in the same conversation as those two? He proved it to everybody a couple of weeks ago when he won. Another fight. It was unfortunate that we didn't get to see it here in the States until you watch the replays, but Monster Inoue improved to 31-0 with 27 knockouts when he defeated the interim WBA champion Murdojan Abdurakhimov, who dropped to 14-2. Inoue is supposed to be fighting again this year, so we'll see what happens with that. And in the fight last week, which I thought was it did have a weird ending. But Oscar Collazo beat Jason Varson in California, and Jason Vason. His corner threw in the towel. I mean, he was taking shots and stuff, but he didn't look like he was that hurt. in my opinion, to justify, throwing in the towel, to be honest with you. But hey, who am I? I mean, the corner that's what they're supposed to do. So I mean, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. To protect their fighters. But anyway. So what I want to talk about now, actually.
Good evening. We're going to check out the weather forecast in just a moment. Wow. I'm going to marry that girl. Don't tell my current wife. But first, here's Billy C. with the latest boxing update.
The latest boxing updates I want to talk about with some fights here that are coming up. Now, Danny Garcia. Now, this is another one of these fights. I'm going to call them money grabs, okay? Danny Garcia is taking on Danny Gonzalez in Brooklyn. All right. Does Danny need money? I think Danny Garcia made plenty of money in his career. 37 wins, 4 losses, 21 coming by knockouts. He's 37 years old already. That kind of shocked me when I saw that. But he's doing a farewell to Brooklyn fight, and he's taking on Daniel Gonzalez, who's 34. He's 34 years old, 32 wins and 4 losses. Not one win is against a quality fighter. Is it a money grab? Yes. Is it going to be available for us to watch for free? No. It's a pay-per-view. What happened to no more pay-per-views, right? Listen, the pay-per-view model today, and we talked about this years ago on this show, the pay-per-view model today, with the exception of the huge fights, and Netflix with Terence Crawford and Canelo proved that you could get gazillions of views. And I'll tell you another thing real quick to jump back to that fight. Something I noticed that was refreshing to me was the amount of different sponsors. Now, granted, we had to deal with some kind of commercials and sponsorships and stuff. I mean, somebody's forking over money to get those viewerships, and that's old time boxing. I mean, that's the way promoters used to do it. You don't sit back and think you're going to collect all this money on pay-per-view, because quite frankly, people have a tendency. If a pay-per-view is $50, they'll spend $39.95 trying to avoid paying the $50, and they'll find an illegal stream and watch it, or watch it the next day on YouTube. Come on, boys and girls. Half these fights are on too late anyway. Terence Crawford and Canelo, I did watch that fight live, but come on, it got over after 2 in the morning. That's a little ridiculous here on the East Coast, especially when you're an old bastard like me, But the truth of the matter is Danny Garcia is doing a farewell fight. He's saying it's a joke of a fight, and you get to pay for it. I'm telling you right now, you're hearing it here first. I would be shocked if they get 1,000 buys on that, and even that is pushing it. Did you catch this past weekend that Joe Calzaghe has been named the greatest fighter in British boxing history? Yeah, it was in the news this morning, actually. The greatest boxer in British boxing history. I had to think about that for a while, and he, according to the voters, and the voters were writers and fighters that people that covered boxing and stuff. On the other side of the pond. And apparently he beat out guys like Lennox Lewis. And look, we're going to have Dax on a little bit later. And he was, him and I, when we first met, we started our relationship with a debate over Lennox Lewis. And I'll admit, I was one of these guys that, didn't give Lennox Lewis the credit he deserved back then. But like I said earlier in the show, after a certain amount of time, when a fighter retires, you get to put their career in perspective. And I respect Lennox Lewis now, and I do think he's one of the greatest fighters of all time, let alone in British history. But I mean, the guy retired as a champ and never came back. To me, that's value, man. That's value. Although I said I retired and I came back. But the truth, I wasn't a world champion. But the truth of the matter is, Lennox Lewis, people are going to remember that about him. But apparently the voters over in Britain thought Calzaghe was better than Lennox Lewis or Ted Kid Lewis, for that matter, was another great British fighter. And I'll tell you, another guy more closer to current times is Carl Froch. I mean, Carl Froch also was a great fighter, but Calzaghe, he retired undefeated. So we put a lot of credence in being undefeated today. So it is what it is with that. But some fights that are coming up that let me mention this. Did the Jake Paul Tank Davis, have you been following some of that? It's talk about a money grab, right? I mean, it's did you see this though? Here, check this out. The kiss. I mean, look at this. I mean, I was shocked when I saw that. I mean, they're promoting it. Look, I give Jake Paul a lot of credit for being a promoter. I don't give him much credit for being a fighter. With the exception of these types of circus WWE type fights, when he fought Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson finally admitted, that he got paid extra money not to really try to hurt, Jake Paul, and he didn't. He was biting, he was hurting his gloves instead. He was frustrated. You don't think he wanted to kick the shit out of Jake Paul? Come on. We all wanted him to, and everybody that Jake Paul has fought, with the exception of one fighter, has not been a real fighter, right? Or, an older person or whatever. Mike Tyson's a real fighter. Tank Davis is a real fighter. But it looks like a circus show. And Tank Davis, in the bits that I've seen, Tank Davis can't even keep a straight face. This is all a money grab for him. The only real fighter that Jake Paul has fought, he lost to Tommy Fury. And did you see that the WBA has him ranked in the top 15? Now, you know what that means? That does mean that if a champion wanted to fight him, that's part of their rule, that, he is a ranked fighter, and he would do it. But, the thing is that Jake Paul is a fantastic promoter, and he's making a ton of money doing it, and that's why people are doing it in the ring with him. And Tank Davis, it's just a joke. My man Orlando, who I love this guy. He was instrumental in helping me, or getting me, I should say, into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. He just said that Florida should have never approved the fight. Georgia declined it, so Florida should have done the same. I give, when I promoted fights in Florida, and, the thing is I always thought the Florida Boxing Commission was extremely fair. There's no title, so I don't know what kind of fees they're having, but it is an exhibition bout, Orlando. So it's not a real fight. So, I give them a pass there. It's going to be, 12-ounce gloves, 10 3-minute rounds. It's going to end up being a draw, unless Jake Paul throws some extra money and Tank Davis, gets a win, which I doubt. I mean, loses to Jake Paul, which I doubt. But it's going to end up being a draw, no decision, or a draw, just like Tyson and Roy Jones when that fight happened. It's a money grab fight, and it's sad. Okay, what's really sad about it is the fact that there are people that want to see it. That's the sad part. The sad part is that there are people that want to see it. And who are these people? Well, these people happen to be younger boxing fans. And that's what I think. And one of the things I've said, and I've also said it, at actually both of my Hall of Fame induction speeches, the one in New York, and of course, my treasured position in the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. I should show my ring, but I'll do that next show. The thing is that I said in my acceptance speeches that the one thing I really wish is that young boxing fans take the time to learn about the history of the sport of boxing. And the reason why I think it's so important is because the history of boxing, all the guys that paved the way for these fighters today that are making this kind of money, they didn't make that kind of money. And when people, talk to me about specifically the argument between the best ever between Sugar Ray Robinson and when these, younger fans try to convince me that Floyd should be in the discussion, the reason why he's not is, and they'll say to me, oh, well, look at some of the fighters that Sugar Ray Robinson fought, and he's got double-digit losses and this and that and the other thing. Well, the way the fight game was yesteryear, they didn't put the value on the O like they do today. And one of the things, the big differences with the fight game yesteryear compared to today is that fighters fought more often, but they didn't spar as much. So, like, in other words, fighters today get a lot of sparring in, right? They'll spar months. If we're gonna work on the body, so they bring in a sparring partner and they work on the body. But it's not the same as a real fight. You can get the rounds in, and you can prepare yourself for a fight and do all those things. But the reason why it's not the same, the biggest reason, is because generally when a fighter brings in a sparring partner, they're going to work on something specific. I know you hear the stories of the wars in Philadelphia. Sparring sessions were wars, and sometimes they really were, especially when you have crosstown rivals that are sparring and, they want a little oomph in there. But generally today, when a fighter is preparing for a fight, they will bring in, fighters to work on specific things. If they're facing a southpaw, they might bring in a bunch of southpaw fighters to get them used to facing a southpaw. If they're fighting a guy that is shorter, a guy that's tall, they'll bring in those kinds of guys to try to familiarize their fighter with that opposition and be ready for it when fight night comes. But the difference with the fighters of yesteryear, it was a trade. They made their living from it. So yes, they would fight some, not so tough fights, but they fought, 3 or 4 times a month. So in those 3 or 4 fights, maybe 3 of them were basically glorified sparring sessions. And the 4th one was always a substantial fight. And that's how they made their money. They would get paid for those fights. So you can't say, oh, well, this guy, he didn't fight all tough fighters. But when you take them out, I had all the stats for one of the shows once, the Hall of Fame fighters. And, with all due respect to the current fighters today, we don't know who's going to get in the Hall of Fame. But, so they very well may have fought Hall of Fame fighters that aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. But, when you look at Sugar Ray Robinson, for example, the amount of Hall of Famers that he fought and beat and is amazing, and these are not just Hall of Famers that, they're trying to squeeze in now. These are guys that made the sport what it is. And this is why I feel it's important for young fans to go back and try and learn about it. And then the next thing I get is, well, there's no video. Or I watched a video of Jack Johnson, and he didn't look that fast. He didn't look that good. Well, the guy fought in the early 1900s. They had a camera that somebody was cranking, one camera shot, how are you going to get the speed? There's no footage of Harry Greb, one of the greatest fighters ever. There's no footage. You know, they said he fought way. Oh, he was an old man when he retired. He was like 30 years old, 32 years old when he retired. He was blind in one eye. He still had 200 and something fights, 260 fights, something like that. Wins, I mean, you know, guys like that, Henry Armstrong, all these greats that you hear, young fighters should go and learn about it. And if there's no video, read some ringside accounts. Adam Pollock put out a whole series of books. I actually have one over here that is Jack Dempsey. I love Jack Dempsey, and he chronicles. I mean, it's not. I'll be honest, they're not exciting reads, but they're technically sound. I mean, you got all these ringside accounts, newspapers, statistics, and all this stuff. That's where you learn about it when there's no video, or when the video isn't easy to grasp, or easy to watch, I should say. But anyway, hey, listen, there's some fights that I started to say, and I got sidetracked here. So Jake Paul, Tank Davis which is a WWE fight. That's actually scheduled for November 14th. It's in Florida, and it's on Netflix. So that's set. Then you got Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather rumors. I haven't seen anything that, aside from them talking on social media, I haven't seen anything on a schedule for that. There's no date, there's no venue. That could all just blow up. So keep that one. There's a couple of fights that I'm really interested in watching that are going to be on the Zone. And one of them is Joseph Parker against Fabio Wardley. It's taking place at the O2 Arena on October 25th. I do think I saw somewhere that this is a pay-per-view. And one of the reasons it's a pay-per-view is because of the British crowd. It's a huge fight there. Now, Joseph Parker is a quality fighter. And I like Fabio Wardley, but there's no way Fabio Wardley is ready for Joseph Parker. So when I break down and do that fight when it comes, I mean, I'll tell you right now who I'm going to pick. I guess you could figure it out. November 22nd is another decent fight on DAZN. David Benavidez against Anthony Yarde. Now, that particular fight, everybody wants Benavidez. Yeah, Joel is telling me now it's $60 on DAZN for that fight. What happened to no more after November? That one's in October. That's why. Anthony Yarde, listen, David Benavidez, I talk to my man Augie about David Benavidez all the time. Here's the thing. I like David Benavidez, but he's raw. He doesn't have the skill set. And Yarde is not going to be an easy fight for him. Some other fights that are coming up that's worth watching, specifically on DAZN, is coming up soon. October 1st, in the cruiserweight division, Brandon Gluton, who's 20 wins and 3 losses with 17 knockouts, he's coming off a loss to Chris Billiam Smith back in April. He's taking on Marcus Brown, who's 25-2, who actually hasn't fought since August of 2023, but he won that fight against Adrian Taylor. That's going to be an interesting fight. And also on October 4th, there's a fight for the European featherweight title. Nathaniel Collins is taking on Cristobal Loretti. Those are a couple of fights that I'm looking forward to. The unofficial official is in the chat room. What's up, brother? I'm glad to be back. Thank you. And a couple of fights cards that I wanted to talk about real quick. On October 11th, my man Jimmy Birchfield in Classic Entertainment and Sports, CES Boxing, is putting on a show at Foxwoods. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be ringside for that. I will be ringside for his next fight, which is November 1st at the Mohegan Sun. But the main event of this fight on October 11th puts it's called Bloodlines, I think. When John Gotti III, who's the grandson of Teflon Don John Gotti, is going up against James Hagler Jr., who's the grandson of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. That's the main event. It's a light heavyweight 6-round contest. They got some other good fighters on that card, including a female fighter in the super lightweight division, Amelia Moore, who's 2-0 with 1 knockout. She's got an interesting career, so interesting that she's going to be one of our guests next week. So we'll be talking to her about the fight. If you want to get tickets for this one, if you're in the New England area, like I said, Foxwoods, October 11th, go to cesboxing.com. And another future guest that we're going to have is my main man, Bobby Hitz. He was a former heavyweight contender. He's done very well as a promoter. And on Friday night, October 3rd, he's doing a show at the Hard Rock Casino in Rockford, Illinois. And it's an interesting card. So if you're in that area, you're going to want to see it. It features a stacked lineup, and most of listen, I've been to Bobby Hitz's cards, and they're always entertaining. As a matter of fact, I got to call one, and we also did a pre-fight show there with LDL TV one time at I think it was a Horseshoe Casino. But anyway, they're always stacked with local tough fighters, and this card is no different. In the main event is going to be a barn burner it's a super lightweight fight between Lucas Moldenhauer, who's an undefeated super lightweight, going on Marco Salai, who's only been beaten twice, plus a lot of local talent. So if you're in that, definitely, if you're in that area, definitely check out Bobby Hitz. Make sure you tell him Billy C sent you. So that's what we got coming up. We got I got some familiar faces popping up in the chat room. I'm glad you guys could join us on our first show back. We promise to keep it fresh, and I got a lot of stuff stacked up in store for you guys, every week, starting with some great guests we're going to be bringing on every week. We're going to bring back some of our specials, like the heavyweight spotlight, I'm trying to get my man Dave Wilcox to come back and do one. So we've been chatting about that, and we're trying to coax Scotty Krause into coming back. And I'm sure the beautiful best photographer in boxing, Emily Harney, she'll be coming back. Like I said, Dax is going to stop by later, give us his thoughts on the Crawford, the What Next kid. My man is in the chat room too. I'm glad you guys all see that we did a show. It was promoted a little bit, but really, I think that one of the biggest influences for me to come and do the fight again, the show again, is the Crawford fight. I'm sorry, it was a great fight, and I hope it's instrumental by convincing some fighters today to fight some fights earlier on. Let's talk about the heavyweight rankings for a minute, okay? I always look at the heavyweight rankings because it's what they say, as the heavyweight division goes, so goes boxing. And this is what I was talking about before, where you can't really compare the amount of champions, fighter that beat champions today, or compared to how many fighters of yesteryear fought champions. Look at the heavyweight division right now. This was as of today. All right. In the IBF, the Usyk is the champ, of course. but they don't even have the number one spot rated. See, that bothers me when you see the top 10, top 15, and you got a slot that's not rated. Now, why isn't it rated? Do you understand why? Because somebody has to, grease the sanctioning bodies to put their fighter in that ranking. I'm sorry, because if there's no other way, because the number 2 ranked fighter is Derek Chisora. Now, why wouldn't he be number 1? Are you gonna, somebody throws some money to the IBF, and next thing you know, you're gonna have a number 1 ranked contender above Derek Chisora? They got Derek Chisora number 2, Efe Ajagba number 3, Frank Sanchez number 4, Moses Atuma. Moses Atuma is number 5. Okay. Now I'm gonna jump to the WBA, who incidentally, the WBA, I don't know how they sleep at night. The WBA, yes, the champ is Orlando Usyk, but they have the balls to have a regular champion listed as a champion, and that's Kubrat Pulev, and then they have an interim champion listed. That's Fabio Wardley. So theoretically, the WBA is claiming that they have 3 world heavyweight champions: Usyk, Pulev, and Wardley. Wardley shouldn't even be in that mix, only because of his experience. But anyway, my point is around Moses Atuma. Now, Moses Atuma is ranked number 1 by the WBA. Look, I was impressed with Moses Atuma's win against Dillian White. He blew him away. Okay, I was a little surprised about that. I was a lot surprised. I actually lost money on that fight. But he's not a number 1 ranked fighter. Look at his record. He didn't beat anybody else. He's got 2 guys on his resume with very impressive records. But who are they? I'd never even heard of them, and when you look through these rankings, so my point is, when you go through the IBF, the WBA, the WBC, even the WBC, they have Lawrence Oakley as their number 1 contender. Now, granted, they have Ajit Kabiel as the interim champion. That's a guy right there. And the WBO actually has Moses Atuma number 1 too. But the guys that are legit, in my opinion, that should be top, 5 in all the sanctioning bodies, Ajit Kabiel. Now, granted, he's got the interim belt for the WBC, so none of the other sanctioning bodies are going to rank him because he's got a belt, which is bullshit, right? But he's the real deal. Nobody wants to fight that guy. I love watching him fight. He's got everything about him. You think he shouldn't be that good, but he is, and he's beaten everybody they put him in. You look at his resume and look at who he's beaten. Okay. He's a legit guy. I like him. He's going to be one of the names that we'll be talking about soon. I still like Daniel Dubois. I was shocked at the fight that he had with Usyk. They rushed Daniel Dubois early in his career, but the version of Daniel Dubois that I saw fight Anthony Joshua, I figured if he fought the same way, he was gonna beat Usyk. I even said it, but he didn't. He fought scared. He fought cautious, and you can't do that against Usyk. The only way anybody's going to beat Usyk is they're going to have to overwhelm him, and Daniel Dubois could have done that, but he didn't. Yeah. So when you look at these rankings, they're pretty funny. They're pretty funny. And now, okay. So the IBF, nobody's ranked at number 1. Derek Chisora is number 2. Efe Ajagba is 3. Frank Sanchez is 4. Atuma is number 5. Richard Torres is number 6. Daniel Dubois is number 7. Filip Hrgovic, there's another good fighter. He's number 8. Jared Anderson, he's number 9. Michael Hunter's 10. Martin Bakole, 11. Bakirodov Jaloev, he's number 12. Peter Kadyrov, he's 13. Lawrence Oakley is 14. And Guido Vinelio, who is I like watching him fight, believe it or not. WBA, like I said, they have the nerve to have not 1, not 2, but 3 champions listed. Moses Atuma, number 1. Michael Hunter, number 2. Leonard Piero, number 3. Martin Bakole, number 4. Filip Hrgovic, number 5. Jarrell Miller, number 6. He's a tough out. Jarrell Miller's a tough out. Nelson Heisa, number 7. David Allen, How'd they resurrect him? He's number 8. Daniel Piero is number 9. Gergen Hovisian, I can never pronounce that name. He's number 10. Manubed Char, who was the WBA champion for a long time. Murat Gassiev, Justice Hunai is 13. Yoandy Turek is 14. And Joseph Goodall is number 15. WBC, you got KBL is the interim champion. Lawrence Oakley is number 1. Shouldn't be. Danny Dubois is number 2. Anthony Joshua. Hey, remember that name? WBC is the only one that's got him ranked so far. He's number 3. Moses Atuma is number 4. And by the way, where's Fury? I know he says he's retired, but he's been in the gym, and you're going to see him announcing a fight pretty soon, probably against Anthony Joshua. Philip Agurvic's number 5. Effie Ajago is 6. Martin McCauley's number 7. Frank Sanchez is number 8. Jaloev number 9. Zili Zhang number 10. Here you go. There's that name. Still, these guys, even though they've lost, they're better than half of these other rankings. It's a scam. Come on, boys and girls. Richard Torres, number 11. Deontay Wilder. Come on, Deontay. Come on. Number 12. Chisora is number 13. Jared Anderson's 14. And Justice Hunai, 15. And finally, WBO. Parker's the interim. Usyk's the champ. Moses Atuma, number 1. Hervergrick, number 2. Zhang, number 3. Oakley, number 4. Danny Dubois, number 5. Jared Anderson, number 6. Anthony Joshua, number 7. Derek Chisora, number 8. Nelson Heisen, number 9. Bakadir Jalolov, number 10. Ekfi Baga, number 11. Richard Torres, 12. Michael Hunter, 13. Surenko is 14. And Johnny Fisher, I don't know how he got. I love Johnny Fisher, but he showed that, he's pretty much not in there anymore. But the box rec computer rankings, this was interesting to me. And the reason why I say that is because with the top 15, I wanted to see who the top 15 were, and they have it like this: Usyk number 1, because they're not really showing you the champion, right? They're just ranking them the way that they should be as far as the computer rankings go, right? So they have Usyk number 1, which is legit. Who do you think's number 2? Ajit KBL, which is I agree with this. I agree with this rankings with the computer based on who you fought, who they fought, et cetera, et cetera. Danny Dubois, number 3. Joseph Parker, number 4. This one I'm a little surprised with Oakley at number 5. Fabio Wardley, number 6. I mean, both of these guys really haven't. Now, Oakley has a good resume in the cruiserweight division, but not so much in the heavyweight division. And Fabio Wardley really, he had 2 tough fights, so I'm a little shocked at that. And who's below Fabio Wardley? Tyson Fury at number 7. Murat Gassiev, number 8. Philip Hergervik, number 9. Michael Hunter, number 10. Martin Bakoli, number 11. Effie Ajagba, number 12. Derek Chisora, number 13. Richard Torres, number 14. And Richard Rakaporhi, who's not ranked anywhere else. He's number 15. Now, the computer rankings are all based on who they fought and who they fought, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, they seem a little more legit to me, to be honest with you. But it just goes to show you how these rankings, are kind of crazy, and then when fighters or their fans, I should say, will say, oh, well, my fighter is ranked at such and such, and how do you really go by it, and I was looking through the ring rankings, and they're not even the way they used to be. I used to like the IBO's rankings, and I should have printed out theirs, because their system is slightly different than the computer system that BoxRec uses. And I've always thought that their ranking system was really the best, the way their computer was. And their guys weren't always in the top. They would have their top 10. that the IBO had. I actually like the IBO. They had their top 10. Then they would have their computerized rankings, and the computerized rankings were totally, and they would always give you the top 50. I used to have them sent to me all the time, and they were always accurate, in my opinion. I do believe that the BoxRec ranking right now is more accurate than all of the other sanctioning bodies. I just don't believe that the sanctioning bodies are being honest. It's like, how a promoter will only promote, their fighters. It's starting to change a little bit now, but they promote their fighter, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the sanctioning bodies are kind of like a promoter now, because they have their fighters that are under their banner, so to speak, the ones that are fighting for their titles, their regional titles, their under lower level titles, the international and all of these. So once you win those titles, like especially an interim title or something, you become their fighter. And now the other rankings, the other sanctioning bodies drop you from the rankings. And I think that's BS, because are we really looking at, when we look at rankings, don't we want to see the real ranked fighters? The Ring Magazine, when back in the day, the Ring Magazine was legit. I mean, they went, and I guess ESPN, I should have printed those too. I guess ESPN is a little more non-biased as well. But you used to get true rankings, not like when you see these, these names that come out of left field, all of a sudden they're ranked, unofficial official is saying that, the eye test that Moses Atuma looks good. Listen, he impressed the hell out of me in his last fight. He did. He shocked me with that win against Dillian White. And I want to see him again. But here's the problem. These guys don't fight enough. This is what I'd like about the British boxing scene. These guys fight each other earlier on. Like I just mentioned, Johnny Fisher, right? When I was watching Johnny Fisher coming up, I was like, okay, man, this is the next guy. I can't wait. I was telling people, oh, you got to keep an eye on Johnny Fisher, Johnny Fisher, Johnny Fisher. He gets in the ring. He fights his first real good fight, and he gets a draw, which he should have. Actually, I think he got the win. Maybe I forget. I don't have his record in front of me, which he shouldn't have, or even a draw he shouldn't have got. Then he fights the same guy again and gets knocked out, and he's ranked in the top 15. Because of his promoter. I mean, it's that simple. It's just. It's disheartening when you see that, it kind of bothers me when I see that kind of stuff, because, it's, we're not getting a realistic, presentation of who is, truly ranked fighters. And, being a top 10 fighter, I think realistically you should be a top 10 fighter in all the sanctioning bodies. I get it once you win one of their belts, but on the way up, you should be able to be a ranked fighter. Number 10 should be number 10 across the board. I mean, and then the worst part about it is these guys, the truth of the matter is these guys pound their chest. I'm a number one, and you'll see the promotional. I'm a number one ranked contender. Yeah, you're a number one ranked contender by so-and-so. You're not even ranked in the other sanctioning bodies. So how do we gauge? And then the other thing is that they're so careful with who they fight, they never even get tested. So by the time you see them in a fight where they're on an undercard of a main event, like a big event, I should say, and then all of a sudden you see him fight and you say to yourself, oh, this guy's ranked number one, he doesn't even know how to, throw a jab, and that's where the protecting the O is ruining the sport, because promoters and I don't blame the fighters, because I think a fighter generally wants to fight. A fighter is got a fighter's mentality. They want to fight, but their promoter, their manager, they're thinking value, long term, TV or streaming deals and whatever, and they say, well, listen, we can't sell the fight unless he's undefeated or unless she's undefeated. And the truth of the matter is that's wrong. But that's what's happened to the fan base. The fan base puts a value on an O. So I've been into many discussions with young. What's up, Daryl? Is popped into the chat room. My man Daryl, haven't seen him in a while. And they put a value on these fighters when just because they have an O. So I've talked to many younger fans that will say, "Oh, well, so and so is good. He's undefeated." Well, what does that matter? And they're the ones that are fueling it. They're the ones that are fueling the focus, the focal point on the O, and they shouldn't. You need to be able to fight real fights. And the reason why I love the British boxing scene is because the Brits have a tendency to match their younger fighters sooner than we do in the States. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget Andre Berto. Andre Berto was a champion, right? And he got a title shot, and he was working his way up and really wasn't doing all that great. And he wins a title. And then the next thing we hear is that he's developing. He's a developing fighter. Wait a minute, he's got the WBC world title belt. How can you say that he's developing? A fighter that gets a title shot should already be a developed fighter. We see that often when you go back in time. You see it often where fighters don't even get a title shot until they got 50, 60 fights under their belt and they finally get a title shot. Now, younger fans look at the O and they think it's good. So when you got a fighter that you never heard of that steps in the ring with, the favorite of the night, let's say, and that fighter is undefeated as well. Next thing you know, they say, oh, well, he's in a good fight. Oh, he beat so-and-so. He was undefeated. Yeah, well, that guy didn't fight anybody. How could you say that, he was a good fighter, when he didn't, fight anybody? It's very disheartening to see that, in my opinion. It's sad to see that because, you're not getting a true representation of the fights, or I should say the fighters. My man Dax is in the chat room. He's going to be joining us a little bit later, and he makes a good point. He says the O sells, but you need to read the numbers behind the numbers to know how good they are. Well, that's my point, is that a lot of times the younger fans don't do that. So they look at the O real quick. We're living in a world now where everything is instantaneous. So he must be good. He's got to know. So it is what it is. So that's what they're looking at, and you can't judge that. And I've said it for years that the reason that I love the British boxing scene so much is because they do that. They challenge their fighters more than others, especially us. So we'll see what happened with that, but I just wish that and that's where I think that the Crawford fight is very well might be instrumental in getting some of these other younger fighters to be able to be willing to, I should say, step in the ring and fight, sooner. And, the difference between the British boxing scene and the U.S. scene is the fact that, we are, the fan base abandons the fighters, if they get a loss, and they don't do that in the UK. So I mean, that could be one of the problems, but we will see. But in any event, I just think that the Crawford fight, hopefully will be instrumental in, getting these kids to fight each other sooner. And then you'd get a much better gauge on how good the fighter is. And, listen, there's nothing wrong with losing a fight if you learn from it. Your career's not over, because you lost a fight. I mean, if as long as you improve, you can't, you can still hold your head up. I mean, as long as you give it your all, and you lose the fight, okay, you go back to the drawing board. It's I'll tell you the truth, it's very aggravating with that, because it just seems that it happens a lot, and more often now than it ever has. But anyway, we'll see if that does move us into the direction that we're hoping that we go. I mean, let's face it, the more we get in terms of quality fights earlier on, you get a good idea of how good the fighters are, and then you get legitimate champions as well. I'm waiting for Harvey Dock to come on. I see that he's trying, but Harvey, if you can hear me, your camera's not on. So if you can get your camera on, we should be good to go. Can't wait to talk to Harvey, one of the best referees in the sport of boxing today. It's, hey, listen, sometimes, with getting all this modern stuff, it's a little tricky. But in any event, the Crawford fight was so important to me for a lot of reasons. But the main reason was, this cat, he challenged himself. And, I've been telling everybody that will listen, I really hope that that more young fighters will use that as an example of challenge yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is what it is. So in any event, we'll see. Let me try and get at least Harvey's audio. So hold on, let me see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Billy. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine, my man. I just don't have a video. I don't have your face, but we'll chat with you until, I don't know. Do you have a spot where you can get your camera to turn on?
Hey, Billy, you know what I'm gonna do? Let me try this on my phone. I think I had an issue with this a couple of weeks ago. But I didn't have a problem when I used my phone. So give me a second.
Yeah, just
And,
we'll just disconnect you, and I'll see you when you come back, brother.
Okay, yeah, I should only need a minute or two.
No problem. So we'll get Harvey Dock back here. Can't wait to chat with him. Listen, I'm not even going to say what I want to talk to him about, because he does everything that I like in a referee. So it's I'm really excited that our first show back after several months. We got Harvey to join us, which is great. But back to my initial thought on the Crawford fight. I really think that, and I hope that Crawford's challenge, that he challenged himself and wanted to prove beyond any doubt that he was such a good fighter, and that he would do what he needed to do in the ring. Made a big difference. Well, listen, we're going to get now I see Harvey, and he's here. Harvey, what's up, brother?
I'm good, Billy. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I
Good,
appreciate
good.
you joining us.
Sure.
I really think you've evolved into one of the best referees in the sport. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. This first one, before I get into some really good stuff, and don't worry, you're not going to get in any trouble for this interview.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to give you the easy question that everybody asks. What got you in where you wanted to become a boxing referee? What made you decide to become a boxing referee?
Well, I was into the sport. I did some amateur boxing. I won the Golden Gloves in New Jersey in '94, and it wasn't too long after that I had to make on what I was going to do following my amateur career. And I mean, quite honestly, I knew I wasn't quite good enough to reach the pinnacles of the sport. So the next best was to stay involved with it, and officiating just seemed like a natural next step for me. So yeah, that's really it in a nutshell. I reached the end of where I could go in the amateurs, and it was time to turn pro or do something else. And something else for me was officiating. So I've been loving it ever since.
I tell you what, being a referee, at least generally, you don't get punched back. But hey, I will say this.
That's
When
true.
I talk to people that fought in the amateurs, when you fought in the amateurs in states like New York and New Jersey and Chicago, I mean, that's pretty tough opposition compared to some of the other states that don't have any amateurs. So you don't slight yourself, but So here's the thing, and this was
Yep.
one of the biggest reasons I reached out and wanted you on first. Last week, you refereed the Callum Walsh and Fernando Vargas Jr. fight, and
Right.
I thought you did, as usual, a great job. And
Thank you.
don't take this wrong, because I want
Right.
your opinion on it. But I've always said that the best referees are the referees in a fight that you don't remember who the referee was. And the reason why I say that is because it's not fighter A versus fighter B featuring referee so-and-so. It's not
Right.
like that, and
Right.
that's why I like the way you referee. When you have to get involved, you get involved. When you don't, you let the fighters fight. You're not a camera hog like some of the other referees. What's your thoughts on that?
Uh, not a lot of thoughts. I mean, I just do what I do. I mean, I've had really good teachers. Uh, Larry Hazard has mentored
My man, Larry.
all
I
of us.
knew. I love Larry Has. He's. I'm going to get him on. But anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So he's mentored everyone from the East Coast, but my hands-on teachers from the amateurs were Benji Estevez and David Fields. So they poured a lot into me, and I absorbed those teachings well over the years. So I mean, whatever you see from me is probably just a reflection of what I've learned from those guys. So I don't have any specific, details that tell me to do this or don't do that. I've just paid attention to great teachers, and I still get great teaching. Like I said, Larry Hazard mentors me and everyone else on the East Coast to this day. So yeah, it's just a matter of paying attention to the process, and it never ends. To be honest with you, because you can have bouts after you've been doing this over 20, 30 years and still screw something up. And the best thing about being here in New Jersey is that if you do screw something up, you know Mr. Hazard is going to let you know about it.
Yeah. Well, he runs a tight ship, but that's why it's one of the best commissions, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
I know you've been all over the world refereeing and stuff. In your opinion, what was the craziest bout that you ever had a referee?
Probably the Ryan Garcia Devin Haney fight. That was a little wacky. That was a little that's probably where I received the most criticism. Actually, I probably received more criticism from that fight than my entire career combined. So that was a little wacky that night. But other than that, not too many other crazy, un out of the ordinary circumstances that have come up in my career.
You know, you mentioned that fight. It's like we're still going through craziness with that fight. You know, I mean, you know, the Haney team just won't let it go. But anyway, you got to this past July, you got to ref one of the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fights. What was your thoughts on that?
Uh, good series, great for women's boxing. The match that I did wasn't quite as barbaric as the first two fights, and uh, and when I say barbaric, I mean that in a complimentary way. Those two young women, they went at it in those first two fights, in a very entertaining way is probably the best way to say it. So they they didn't have that level of excitement in the match that I did, but overall, that those fights were phenomenal, and I think they did a lot for women's boxing. You can tell by all the fans that showed up. So it was an entertaining fight, but more so it was an entertaining evening. It was an all women's card, and they did great numbers. So yeah, my thoughts are very positive on what they gave us, what they produced. Tremendous, tremendous, both of them.
You know, you used a word that's a great segue for my next question. You said you used the
Okay.
word barbaric. You refereed both of the Tim Tszyu Sebastian Fedora fights this past July, and the first one in March of last year, which was a bloodbath. And I got to be honest, I was shocked, and I don't even remember what the rule was. If I'm pretty sure that the ringside physician had to stop that fight. Was the only one that could stop the fight. I never saw so much blood in my life. Okay, you were covered with blood. I mean, I was watching from TV. I was getting covered with blood. I can't believe that they didn't stop that fight. I mean,
Right.
the not only was the blood flowing in his eye, it was like a hose was hooked to his head. I just, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, what was going through your mind during the fight? I know what was going through my mind as I'm watching the fight. I couldn't
Right.
imagine what was going through yours in the ring with them.
Yeah, well, there were quite a few rounds where there was just a consultation between me and the doctor. We check in with the fighter in between rounds with his corner. They were all on board. I think what we took into account was that Zoo, although he came up short that night, was still fighting back with all of the blood that you mentioned. Yeah, it was a lot of blood. I've never been involved in a fight that bloody, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if the fight is willing and and it's deemed that he can still see, then we have to give him the chance to keep going. Uh, my thoughts, I try to keep it as neutral as possible and just continue to go through round after round doing my observations and having consultations with our ringside physicians and taking my cue from him, taking my cue from the fight and taking my cue from the cornerman. And they were warriors. They wanted to keep going, and we allowed them to go.
sometimes the corners are more warrior than the fighter should be. I mean, I've always looked at it like, that's their job to make the decision, and
Right.
it was a bloody fight. It was definitely a bloody
Right.
fight. With that said, what in your opinion, what was the best fight you ever refereed that when the night was over, you just, you were able to say to yourself, damn, that was a great fight that I was part of.
It's a good question. I think one that comes to mind immediately is Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton. They had two fights. The first fight was in New York, and they basically just stood toe to toe and gave you back and forth nonstop action for 12 rounds. That was probably the best fight I've had to be a part of. That was sensational what those two guys gave. And then they had a rematch, maybe a little less than a year later in Ireland, in Carl Frampton's hometown. But yeah, the first fight was in New York, and it was fantastic. And for your listeners, if they haven't seen that fight, I would say go check that fight out. Check it out. Leo Santa Cruz versus Carl Frampton. Great fight.
And they were both at the peak of their careers in that first
Yes.
fight. There's no question.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
they were.
I'm
Yes.
glad you reminded me of that fight. That's good. This last thing is more of a like a boxing thing, and I've been talking about it on today's show. My opinion is boxing today is nothing like it was in previous eras, and I think, despite the potential of us having, in my opinion, we could have the greatest fighters of all time right now because of the nutrition advances and the training methods and, the added benefit of, all the video and footage we could obtain to prepare for fights. It seems to me that a lot of fighters, always opt for the easiest way out for the biggest gain until Crawford stepped in the ring with Canelo and showed the boxing world, that there's more to it than just, keeping your O intact. I mean, he put it all on the line. In your opinion, do you think, and I've been talking about this all day now, do you think that this fight, specifically by Terence Crawford, will inspire some of the younger fighters or even promoters and managers to challenge their fighter or themselves, if they're the fighter, thinking to do what Terence Crawford did? And I don't mean move up 3 weight classes. I mean just go after the next guy that somebody's saying is better, instead of just, talking smack on social media.
Yeah, you know what? I think I see your point. I think with these guys, I think they're motivated. Most of them are motivated by the finances that come with it. So I think you may start to see more of the matches you want to see, being that you have these promoters that are pouring a lot of money into the sport now. So they're starting to make some of the matches that we've wanted to see for years, and they're finally starting to get made. It, I think if they're fairly compensated, I think you'll see more guys taking chances. And by no means am I saying that that's what prompted Crawford and Canelo to fight one another. I'm not saying that. I'm what I'm saying more so is that the guys that make these decisions from the business point of view, if both sides feel that they can compensate their fighters, I think you'll see guys get things done. I think besides the finances, what's been a problem in recent years is promoters just don't do business with one another. And you've had this promoter won't do business with that promoter, and you know, I think it's been more of guys staying in their playing in their own playground as opposed to just not wanting to fight. But I think if you can get these promoters to start doing business with one another, I think we can get more fights along those lines, like Crawford and Canelo. You
You
know,
know,
I think it's more business than the fighters just being reluctant. I mean, yeah, there certainly are going to be fighters that are reluctant, but I tend to look at it more from a business standpoint, and the powers that be have to say, okay, we're going to take a chance, but we're being compensated, so it's worth the chance.
no, no. Listen, I agree with you 100%. Have always said it's not the fighter, because the fighter themselves, to be a fighter, I mean,
Right.
that's your makeup. You're not afraid
Right.
to fight somebody else, but the money obviously comes into it. And I think you're 100% right with the promoters not wanting to play nice with each other. And I blame the UFC's success on that, where they were able to create a league. And I think for the last 10 years now, a lot of these promoters have decided to try to keep it within their own world, because in their mind it's like a league. You know what I mean?
Right.
Why you go
Right.
out? So then you add a guy like Turkey Al-Rashid, who seems to be helping the cause a little bit by opening up his pocketbook. But I
Right.
kind of look at that sometimes as a negative too, and I'll tell you why. The
Mhm.
boxing has always had a tendency to follow the money, right? I mean, you
Right.
could go back 100 years, and it was the same. I mean, money drives the fight. I mean, it's called prize fighting for a reason,
Right.
And what happens in boxing, what I see, is that promoters become lazy. So if you get a guy that's willing to open up a checkbook, everybody starts to depend on him. Now, what
Right.
happens if all of a sudden he decides he doesn't want to do boxing anymore? He has
Right.
another interest. He wants to be golf, and what
Mhm.
happens to boxing? He could leave us in a very bad state. So I think that it's important that promoters don't all just rely on him, that they start stepping up to the plate themselves. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. The promoters definitely have to do their jobs as well. As you say that, I think back to that Super Six tournament that Andre Ward was a part of so many years ago, when all those different promoters had to work together, and somehow, some way, that is a rarity in the sport. But somehow they all decided to work together and get things done. You know. I would like to see more of that, where these guys work together, and you can produce a lot of great fights, and the loser doesn't really lose based on how he loses. So yeah, I think you're right in that you do put yourself in a precarious position if you're dependent on one person to solve so many different issues. But yeah, if they can start working together, uh, like they did for that Super Six tournament, I think I think boxing will be in a much better position.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And finally, I also think that some of the blame is the fans. And the reason why I say that is they've put so much value in the O, that the promoters and managers and, now I guess streaming companies, they feel they can't promote a fight unless a fighter has an O, or worse, if a fighter gets that loss, that the value goes down. I mean, these super fighters prove that they're not susceptible to that, like Canelo Alvarez. His value
Right.
certainly did not go down after losing. Do you
Right.
think that can turn around? Do we need the fan to support that, or do we need the marketing of a fighter different? I mean, what's your thoughts on the
Yeah,
value of the O?
I agree that the O is so rare. You're only talking about a handful of fighters throughout history that have been champions and retired undefeated. There's only a handful of them. So obviously that's not the end all be all. The greatest of the greatest fighters have all suffered losses. I mean, what do you have in the modern era? You're talking about Mayweather, Ricardo Lopez, Rocky Marciano. But after that, everyone has taken losses. So what have we been promoting before the Mayweather fight? I mean, if you put on a good fight, win, lose, or draw, fans are going to want to come see you. So yeah, maybe that is a problem with the promoters and how they promote. Because look, Arturo Gatti, he may not have been the all-time best fighter in his weight class, but man, was he popular. When he fought win, lose, or draw, you knew you were getting a fight, and he had a tremendous fan base. So yeah, it's not all about the zero. And you're right. I don't know how the best way to promote these guys are. I mean, that's for the promoters to figure out. But when you have guys that put it all on the line, people are going to want to come see you. And Gotti's just one of a lot of examples. You can't define a fighter's worth merely by wins and losses, because
I
you can pad a record and get a guy to be 50, 60, 70 and 0, and he hasn't fought anybody. But then you can have
exactly
somebody who has 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 losses, but you want to see that guy because you know he's going to put on the show.
100%. I couldn't have said it better. And you mentioned Arturo Gatti. Yeah, we need another one of him. We need another Boom Boom Mancini. We need those
Oh
kind of
yeah.
fighters. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And you're right. I just think that somewhere along the line, a promoter feels he can't promote a fighter if he loses, or they coddle him, like you said. The people who they're fighting aren't great. Then all of a sudden they get in the ring with somebody good, they lose, and then they kick them to the curb, which isn't fair to the
Right.
fighter either. But
Yeah.
anyway, listen, man, I think that we're in a resurgence right now, and I think
Yeah.
that the Crawford Canelo fight really added to that. So we were heading in the right direction to begin with, and time will tell. Hopefully we'll get some more fights, and hopefully we'll get to see Harvey Dock being the third man in the ring, because there's not many better than you. That's for sure, my man.
Thank you, Billy. I appreciate that. And
Uh, and
yeah,
and
I
I
mean,
I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do.
yeah. Yeah, anytime, Billy. You're my guy. Anytime you want me, you just let me know.
Okay,
And
well, don't be surprised if you're hearing from me sooner than you think. But
okay.
hey, listen, I appreciate your time. And
Yes,
if
sir.
you see my man Larry, tell him I'm hunting him down. He's coming. He's going to be coming on too soon. All right.
Will do. Will
All right,
do.
brother. You have a good one.
Thanks, Billy. You too.
Take care. That's
All
my
right.
man Harvey Dock. In my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, referees out there today, and telling it like it is. And I appreciate what he said, because he's saying it the way it should be. Fighters, and I'm glad he mentioned Arturo Gatti. Like Harvey said, he's out of Jersey. Arturo Gatti, I remember seeing Arturo Gatti a couple of times at what was the venue? He always, I want to say Ice Palace. It wasn't the Ice Palace, but he always fought at this place in Jersey, and I remember going to see him. Actually, I had a that what it was I had a fighter on the card, and Arturo Gatti was there the first time I met him, and the crowd. Harvey is not even touching how much fan base it was. It was like everybody's got around Arturo Gatti for pictures and autographs and stuff like that while the fights were on. Everybody kicked the fights to the curb, and that was it. But I think he's right that if we could get another couple of fighters like Arturo Gatti, and I also mentioned a guy like Boom Boom Mancini, that kind of stuff. Should have, we should have, get some more guys like that. But I was just noticing that I had an error that I didn't even see. But anyway, joining us right now, my man Dax Khan. What's up, brother?
Hey, long time no see.
Yeah,
Hall of Famer.
what's
Hall
going on?
of Famer, not one time, two-time Hall of Famer.
Hey, I tell you, I appreciate that, and it was good. Especially the Florida. No knock on New York, but the Florida was a great weekend, and we had a good time, and I'm glad. And to be honest with you, Dax, I figured, what else can I do in the sport? You know, I accomplished what I never thought in a million years I would have accomplished. And, you know, I figured, what do I want to do to show? But this fight, Crawford against Canelo, and you know, man, we talked about this fight years before it was made. I felt confident that Crawford was going to win, and I think it lived up to everything that we could have imagined. What's your final thoughts on that fight?
I knew that Crawford had the skill set. There was some reasonable doubt after the Madrimov fight where Crawford seemed to struggle with the jump in weight. And now Madrimov is an accomplished amateur, just shy of the Olympic level. He did lose his next fight to Virgil Ortiz Jr. by similar scores as what he lost to Crawford, which brought up more questions. Not that Virgil Ortiz Jr. is not an elite fighter, just that if he's beating Madrimov by the same margin that Crawford did, you know, what's going wrong with Crawford? But a lot of people, I don't know, listening maybe have never run into Crawford. You know, he does walk around 175, 180 pounds. I remember being in Atlantic City with Zab Judah for a Clarissa Shields fight. We're walking down the hall of the Hard Rock, and there's Terence Crawford. I'm saying to myself, I'm like, wow. You know, he's always reminded me of Thomas Hearns in the sense of that lanky build when he was younger and the ability to switch up boxing and knowing when to use his power. Except, of course, we know Terence has a better chin than Tommy. Crawford used his natural skill set. He boxed when he needed. He landed power shots that kept Canelo honest. If he felt the distance closing, he did what he does best, which is just switch gears, switch stances. It's going to be looked at as the opposite of what we tend to criticize 10 years from now, just as you mentioned about Lennox Lewis earlier. Is going to realize that, you know, this was truly a special fight of this era.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You know, the Madrimov fight, you know, when I looked at that, and that's what a lot of people said, oh, he's never going to, you know, he struggled with that fight, and he's moving up 2 extra weight classes. But, you know, that fight, he jumped up in weight class after the previous fight. For this fight, he had a year to put on the weight. And we know one thing about Crawford. He's a serious cat, you know, and he put on that weight the right way. And, you know, when I saw photos of him working out and putting on the weight slowly, and then when he stepped in that ring, I'll tell you what surprised me the most, Dax, was that he didn't seem to lose any speed or mobility. I mean, it was all there. It was just it was Crawford, just a bigger version of him, really, right?
Yeah, it was. It was, of course, I think everybody was a little bit wondering what's going to happen when Canelo was able to bury himself in there and start working the body. But again, Crawford just really didn't give him that chance.
Exactly.
You know, Terence Crawford, I knew was going to be, and I won't say special, but even though he is a special fighter, but we know special so overrated and so overused in the sport. But I remember after his first major fight, I guess you can say, against a fellow upcoming prospect, which was against Klimov. And in that fight, if you remember, that was that lightweight, and Klimov had more or less went to survival mode. And after the fight, Terence Crawford, first thing he did was take to social media and he apologized. And he explained that when you have a veteran in there who knows how to survive and they frustrate you, it tends to cause you to make mistakes. It tends to cause you to try too hard. And that's when you don't get the knockout. I learned from this fight, and I'm not going to make the same mistake again. And ever since, Terence Crawford has not done that.
Yeah. And, you know, I was nervous that we were going to see, you know, a Joe Louis, Billy Conn reenactment because, and it started, I started getting nervous towards the end of the fight because I'm watching, I'm going, he's starting to get a little more confident. You know, he's going in there. You know, I hope he doesn't go for the knockout because that's exactly what Canelo needed him to do, you know. But he didn't. He stayed within his game. And, you know, he outboxed Canelo. And Canelo, you know, nothing against Canelo. I mean, you know, that's the kind of fighter that beats Canelo. You know, Bivol did it. Floyd did it. Now Crawford did it.
Look, this was 2 guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famers.
Definitely.
people can say what they want to say about Canelo, but you cannot take away from what he's accomplished. Now, Terence Crawford, you know me, I'm a stats guy. Like I was saying in the chat room about, you got to look behind the numbers. Terence Crawford, ever since, right now he's 42-0 with 31 knockouts. He had 20 opponents with 15 stoppages in world title fights. He's 12-0 against current or former world titleists. He is a 4-division lineal champion. People forget he was the lineal champion at lightweight.
Lightweight, right?
People
right.
forget that.
I know.
Not only that, but he went and he won after the PBC did their best to freeze him out, and they forced their two most marketable welterweight, Sean Porter and then Errol Spence Jr. to fight him. He was fighting whoever he can get into the ring. And of course, this was after he had jumped up from 147 and he had already unified that. And then he had came in and he defeated an undefeated champion in Jeff Horn. And so far, we got to figure he's defeated 9 opponents with 2-digit undefeated records. 6 were either multi-time or unified world champions. The man has been dumped on his entire career. I remember when Bob Arum complained about losing money every pay-per-view that Terence Crawford was the headliner in, which was a time when the PBC did have him frozen out at welterweight because he was fighting whoever was available. He pretty much squashed that PBC stronghold on that division. And it's shameful that it's taken 17 years and lineal champion now in 3 divisions. 3 divisions, he is the undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. Terence Crawford is getting the mainstream respect for his accomplishments that he should have gotten back at junior welterweight. He is so good, and me and you have had this conversation before about Vladimir Klitschko, where he is so good, he makes world-class opponents look average.
It's true. And, the thing I think, and I've said this, I think the biggest thing that hurt Terence Crawford, and not only the way fans looked at him, I'm going to say that past tense, because whoever doesn't look at him the way he deserves now just doesn't know the sport, but also financially, was Bob Arum in Top Rank. When he was signed with them for as long as he was, they kept him on the shelf in a sense. He lost, I don't know how much money, millions of dollars by not being active. And then he was the one that was being criticized for not being active. When, as far as the PBC concerned, don't even get me started with them, but everybody thought that Errol Spence was going to destroy him, and he ended Errol Spence's career, in my opinion.
And of course, then the excuses about the car accident and, come on now. You were talking about the records before. When you break down Errol Spence Jr.'s record, you see there's names on there that were undefeated, yet they never defeated an opponent with a winning record.
Exactly.
A lot of the junior welterweights that moved up to welterweight, such as Danny Garcia or Lamont Peterson, they hadn't outgrown 140 pounds. It's just that the PBC wanted to monopolize that division. But yes, he went out there. Not only did he beat Errol Spence, but he brutalized Errol Spence. I think we've seen Terence Crawford take out a lot of frustration against the sport and the way he had been treated in that fight.
Against Errol Spence.
Correct. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
So.
Oh, I saw a post on social media today that was saying, I was shocked. This particular guy's been posting stuff, and I think he's got a screw loose. But as a matter of fact, he was saying that Canelo was robbed, that he thought Canelo won the fight. But he was saying that Keith Thurman deserves a shot at Crawford because he feels Crawford is ducking Keith Thurman. I think Keith Thurman, he's expired, in my opinion. I mean, how he got, well, we know how he got because it's a PBC fighter, but he's getting a world title shot against Sebastian Fundora, and the guy fought once. I mean, between a bicycle accident, car accident, slipped on a banana peel and hurt his back. I mean, all these excuses I don't even want to see him in the ring anymore.
After he got married, however long ago, he wanted to take time off and live as a husband. And but just to break down Crawford real quick, you got to figure between 2015 and 2016, Crawford faced a number one ranked contender. He faced two multi-time world title challengers, an undefeated champion. 2017, 2018, he defeated an Olympic gold medalist. He defeated two world champions that were undefeated back-to-back, a top 5 legitimate contender. From 21 to 23, Crawford, like I stated, literally dismantled the PBC's top welterweights. Since winning his first minor title, the NABO, I think, which was that fight I mentioned with Klimov, Crawford's combined opponent's resume is 576, 37, and 10.
No, listen,
and that includes Canelo. You know what I mean? That includes Spence. That includes, what really makes him special and separates him. And this is no knock on Manny Pacquiao, because we love Manny Pacquiao. It's no knock on Floyd Mayweather. Regardless of his business ethics, he is an all-time great. But Terence Crawford did this the hard way, what you always call a blue-collar fighter. He has never been given the easy road. Not on his record, there's no split decisions. There's no majority decisions. He's never fought out of catch weight. He's never asked for a stipulation that gets him an edge. He's never went out there and said he needed to fight in his hometown or else he won't fight at all. Whenever he has fought in Vegas against other promoters whose fighters tend to get the nod in close fights in Vegas, he took it out of the judges' hands. He gave the judges a night off. And Terence Crawford is active on social media. He's not just a boxer. He's a boxing fan, which we don't see with a lot of fighters. And he is one of the first guys to send out a tweet or X post stating when somebody does score a big win, where they should get. I remember after Alexander Usyk dominated Tyson Fury for the second time, Terence Crawford was the first one up there that said, put that man number one pound for pound.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir, because I love Terence Crawford, and I really hope, and I've been saying it pretty much the backdrop of the show today, is I hope that by him challenging himself and proving beyond any reasonable doubt how good he is, and like you said, he took it out of the judges' hands. They tried. I scored the fight 117-111. That's me. But he made it so that it was a no doubt win. I hope he inspires other fighters to challenge themselves rather than take the easy route. Everybody wants to make the most money. I get it, but what the difference between being a champion and being a great champion, I think Terence Crawford did against Canelo, and that's the kind of stuff that I think we need more of. And that'll get boxing back to a place where you could be proud to say you're a boxing fan and overlook stuff like Tank Davis against Jake Paul or Mike Tyson against Floyd Mayweather.
I'll say this much: the last few years, we have seen several guys do just this. Naoya Inoue has done the same thing. Alexander Usyk has done the same thing. I mean, that man has never had anything in his favor. He fights anybody whenever they're willing. They try to screw him over, and he still finds a way to win. Unfortunately, throw in Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, the two top light heavyweights. They had no problems with fighting not once, but twice, because they wanted to prove. They wanted legacy to go along with the money. The money is great, but the money can be spent, as we know in this sport. A lot of fighters end up blowing through their money, but the legacy will last forever.
I think you mentioned Bivol and Beterbiev. That fight, I believe, deserves a third fight. I think that they were both legit in winning one each, and I think that's a money fight, a third fight. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been, it hasn't materialized to this point.
David Benavidez, that's the issue.
David Benavidez. I mean, listen, I think he's going to have against Anthony Yarde is not going to be an easy fight for Benavidez. Benavidez doesn't have the skill set. He's big and he's a fan. People like him, and he's popular, but he doesn't have the skill set. I'm sorry.
He's exactly what you criticize all the time. He has that but really, who has he beat? Alexander Bodzik, after he was still, I think he beat some low-level opponent after coming back from what Arthur Beterbiev did to him. And, he actually went the distance with Benavidez. Benavidez, he's lost belts on scale. He's lost a belt from being seen doing cocaine. He won the belt from the weakest champion in the division. Now, Turkey, he put out something saying, can David Benavidez make 168 pounds? And wants him to win against Crawford. David Benavidez, when he goes into the ring, he's been known to weigh over 200 pounds.
I don't think I get pissed when I hear everybody finding opponents now for Terence Crawford. It's like, he did everything that he needs to do. I know. Listen, I said it earlier in the show. The only fight that could make sense for him and make him a lot of money is a rematch with Canelo. But I don't think Canelo wants a rematch. I mean, but that's it. I don't think, and I'm not Crawford, and he's a unique individual. I don't think people should start trying to keep, like David Benavidez, I think is a waste fight for him. Not that I don't think he could win. I think he would do the same thing. I don't care how big he is, yeah, I just
don't find, I don't find any merit to it. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. No, I'm with you.
But
anyway,
what I was going to say is that what a better way. I know, obviously, I don't know his bank account, but I'm pretty sure that Terence Crawford has a decent amount of money. I know that he's close with his family. He's always posting on stuff, that he's bought for his mom. He's not a guy that's out there flashy. He's not a guy that's out there partying in clubs. So I can't see him just going out, leaving boxing and, ruining himself and having to come back 5 years later because he's broke. So with that being said, what a better time to walk away from this sport, a brutal sport, after you have been so dominant for 17 years on top. You defeated every man you ever faced without a single bit of doubt or criticism. Maybe a lot of disappointment, but no doubt or criticism on who won. Why not leave now? There really is nothing more to accomplish. He's 37 years old. He's not an old 37, just like Arthur Beterbiev is not an old 40. But the point of the matter is he's 37 years old. Anything can happen overnight. And why not just leave where you are right now? Because what he's done, how he's done it, has not been done before, except by Alexander Usyk at a higher division and Naoya Inoue.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. I said it as I opened the show. I think that there's nothing left for him, and he should, go and basically, like Lennox Lewis, walk out on top, and he'll always be remembered for that. But hey, Dax, I appreciate you coming on. We obviously got to get you back as we get back into the swing of things here, and we'll go from there, my man. We got some decent fights coming up, club level shows. Nothing big again for a little bit, but hopefully this surge will continue going forward.
It should. Look forward very much to two things you can talk about at any point in time in the future if I'm on again. Is Bam Rodriguez has one more fight at super flyweight, and then he's going up to bantamweight because he wants to unify that division. He wants to collect all 4 titles. And then Junto Nakatani is jumping up to super bantamweight, and he's going to chase down Naoya Inoue. So, those lower weight classes, we got some great fights that are coming up sooner than later.
I love the smaller weight classes now, and now's a good time, especially with Bam Rodriguez floating around there too, and he's so exciting. Maybe they finally get some recognition like they deserve,
Hopefully, man. But
all right, brother. I appreciate you coming on. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, everyone.
Hey, now that I know that you're not working with the Owls, that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not anymore too. So, all right, everybody, enjoy the night.
Take it easy, Dax. That's my man, Dax Khan. And listen, I appreciate everybody joining us for this comeback show. And make sure you tune in next week because we're going to have the stars of Above My Pay Grade, which is a podcast that's taken the world by storm. Jeremy and Jimmy will be joining us, as well as Amelia Moore, an undefeated female fighter that will be fighting at the Foxwoods Resort and Casino in October. So make sure you're there. If you want to, definitely, what do you mean? If you guys need to resubscribe or follow us, just go to BillyCBoxing.com. We got the links for everything that we're on. We're on not only YouTube and Facebook and wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Odyssey now and Twitch. And I tried to, our stream didn't work live on Rumble, but I'll get this show up there. So anyway, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be back, and I hope to see you guys soon. So until then, I'll leave you with this. Make sure you tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.